Raiders! Oakland, LA, Oakland, Vegas, Raider Nation, wherever, forever! You got your old Uncle Mosh and Raiders Fan Radio from Murph's Man Cave, taking a lighter journey into the dark side. Sit back, put your feet up, pop a top, and enjoy the ride. Here we go!
Look left, look right, Bolitnikov, a leaking pass, touchdown!
We miss you, we love you, and we'll see you in the Hall of Fame.
When you have great coaches, then after you have great coaches, you get great players. You have a great organization, and you tell them one thing: just win, baby.
Way up the middle, intercepted Filipiano at the 50, time running down. Oakland football, and I think Oakland victory.
The Oakland Raiders have scored on the most zany, unbelievable, absolutely impossible dream of a play.
Well, I love this team. I think this team can win. I think this team can win.
What is up, Raider Nation? Your old buddy Murph back once again for another fantastic episode of Raiders Fan Radio. Just a quick show for you today. I had an amazing time. The last 24 hours have been just absolutely a whirlwind down at the Senior Bowl, and not only had a chance to shake hands and to meet all the members of the Raiders coaching staff and general manager Mike Mayock, but also had an opportunity to post up on Radio Row, man, and we had some really cool interviews that came through. We talked to Matt Schneidman of the Mercury News. He broke down not only the Raiders, kind of their draft plans, but some of the key players that the Raiders staff was looking at for the Senior Bowl. And then also we had an opportunity to sit down with Alexa Stabler and talk to her a little bit about like what it is, the experience of the Senior Bowl, not only for the city of Mobile, but from the agent side of things, from the kind of the prospective player side of things. She kind of gave us a cool little insight into that. And then of course we had to talk about her dad and the legacy that he meant to not only that area of Alabama, but to the Oakland Raiders. So I just want to get this, share this out with you today, these two interviews. We're going to talk a lot more. I'm going to have major details about the Senior Bowl and what the experience was, and especially just kind of the overall picture of it and what it was like to meet the coaches and whatnot, all that stuff. I'll have that for you in the next episode, full episode of Raiders Fan Radio, which will be number 114, and that will be back with myself and Uncle Mosh, and so we'll give you the full rundown of everything. In the meantime, we'll have these two interviews for you today, and then one last thing, stay tuned to Raiders Fan Radio. The day of the Super Bowl, Uncle Mosh and I are going to do a Raiders Super Bowl spectacular. You're going to be seeing 90 hours of freaking NFL pregame coverage from a multitude of different networks, but only one of them is going to bring you nothing but Raiders related content, and that's going to be us. And we are going to go back and we're going to look at all three of the Raiders Super Bowl wins, and we're going to go over the significance of the wins, the details of the wins, some of the more significant stats that are still relevant to today, where it fits into the lexicon of the league and the importance of just all that fun stuff. So look for that. We're going to try to do that Sunday morning, or at least mid-morning, so that'll be, have your coffee with me and Uncle Mosh and listen to the Raiders coverage after you get home from church or whatnot. So anyways, good stuff there. Look forward to bringing that to you. And thank you as always for the support of Raiders Fan Radio. Enjoy these interviews, and I will talk to you soon. All right, Raider Nation, we are live at the Senior Bowl, and we would like to welcome to Raiders Fan Radio a writer for the Bay Area News Group, a man who's joined us here on Raiders Fan Radio before, but first time ever in person.
In person.
And welcome, Matt Schneidman.
How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, buddy. How are you enjoying the Senior Bowl?
Couldn't be better.
Yeah?
Not too bad.
Good deal. How long you been in town for?
Since Monday morning. A couple days now.
Okay.
I want to say I'm glad practice was canceled today. Sitting out there, it was a little cold yesterday, but not too bad.
It's kind of ugly outside, isn't it? Yeah, it's definitely pouring and the wind is blowing and it's getting wild out there. So they moved it to an indoor practice facility today. So is there going to be any kind of media coverage at all that's available to you? Or?
Not of practice.
Okay.
Believe we have player availability around 4:30 after practice, but after 3 media sessions with John Gruden yesterday and then today. That was a little too many for me.
Anything come out of that you want to share with the listeners at all? Or?
A couple small newsworthy things. Quarterbacks coach Brian Callahan, new offensive coordinator of the Cincinnati Bengals. So the Raiders don't have a quarterbacks coach right now. I mean, technically it's Greg Olsen since, he's offensive coordinator by title, but Gruden calls the plays. So Olsen will be working with quarterbacks this week at the Senior Bowl. The Raiders have a new defensive line coach, Brenton Buckner, who was the Buccaneers defensive line coach last year. Mike Turbevak, who was the D-line coach this past season. Gruden hopes to have him in sort of a senior advisory role. And then Marshawn Lynch, we don't know what his future holds. He's going to be 33 in April, unrestricted free agent. He ran pretty well at the beginning of last season, but nobody really knows yet how that groin is. Missed the last 10 games, and Gruden said he'll have more of an idea on whether Lynch even wants to play football after the Super Bowl. So I think if the Raiders stay in Oakland, he'll come back. If not, then he might retire. But those were the three little newsworthy things. Gruden said he hasn't talked to Jared Cook's agents yet. I know that's one of the big priorities for the offseason, re-signing him. But Gruden expects there to be competition to sign him, as there should be, because he had a really good season, and this will be his last chance to get a big contract.
Right, okay. Do you think the Raiders would be willing to come off a big contract for a player like that, at his caliber? There's a lot of good tight ends that are here at the Senior Bowl, right? A lot of good draft opportunities.
Right, that, and they have Darren Waller, who seems like a promising young guy who made some plays for them toward the end of last season. The thing is, I don't know if you're going to want to pay a 31-year-old tight end what he will demand on the open market if you're truly rebuilding a team. So he may not be worth the money, especially if they're confident in what Waller can do. So if I had to make a prediction, I would say Jared Cook is not an Oakland Raider, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders made a push to re-sign him.
Okay, good deal. Hey, let's back up a little bit. You mentioned new D-line coach Brenton Buckner. A chance to meet him earlier. Super, super nice guy. And I didn't get here yesterday. I got here today, but I was able to watch the coverage on NFL Network. And I'm talking about a guy that's in the trenches. I mean, hands on the players. Looked like he was having a blast. And I asked him this morning, I go, look, you're having fun. He said, that's my element, man. That's where I'm at home. What do you think about the addition of him as a coach? Seems like a great fit.
Yeah, I mean, he played 9 seasons in the NFL, I believe, played for the Cardinals, the Panthers, the Steelers. They need a D-line coach. I'm not saying Turgevak didn't do this because the players that I talked to last year really respected and liked him, but they had the worst defensive line in the NFL last year. They had 13 sacks, which was the fewest for any team in a season since the 2008 Chiefs had 10, I believe. And, they really didn't generate any pressure. They had the second worst run defense in the league, obviously the worst pass rushing unit in the league. And they're going to have to address that position. So his input will be valuable when it comes to that. I mean, I'm sure Brenton Buckner won't be making the number 4 pick if it's a defensive lineman.
Right.
But, I'm sure he'll have some say in evaluating. What I wouldn't be surprised if there are 2 defensive linemen the Raiders take in the first round, especially with that 4th pick. So he'll have an important role, especially as the Raiders try to make their defensive line something formidable this year.
If you had to look into your crystal ball for that number 4 pick, you mentioned defense. We talked about the defensive line. Is it Montez Sweat? Is that the guy at number 4 for the Raiders?
That seems a little high for him, even though I saw a play he made yesterday. I mean, he seems like a first-round guy, of course, and his stock seems to be rising a little bit here. But to me, at least from what I've seen and read and heard, he seems to be right below that top tier of defensive linemen of, Nick Bosa, Cleveland Farrell, Quinnen Williams, and Ed Oliver, and, of course, Nick Bosa. And Josh Allen. Josh Allen's the other one.
Who chose to kind of dip out, right?
Who dipped out of this. So if I had to read into my crystal ball, I'll say Quinnen Williams at number 4. I know he's a defensive tackle. I know the Raiders took 2 last year, and they're happy with P.J. Hall and Mo Hurst. But you take the best player, best defensive lineman available, and Williams is a converted defensive end, so he can still get after the quarterback. He's not just a run guy.
Do you think, is that going to be the focus of, big shift? Obviously, Mike Mayock now general manager of the Raiders after Reggie McKenzie leaves. Is there a different philosophy now then to that top pick, do you think, what is the philosophy, I should say, change between Reggie and Mayock?
That's interesting. I don't know since,
you haven't seen one yet, so it's hard to say.
Mayock hasn't really revealed too much. We'll get a chance to talk to him tomorrow. But last year it seemed as if they were set on an offensive lineman. They were
Right,
set on
right.
a left tackle, and they won't say this, but I think they wanted Mike McGlinchey over Colton Miller, and even though McGlinchey wasn't there, they kind of settled for Miller because he was a left tackle. I think this year it just has to be you take the best player available.
Okay.
Whether that be an edge rusher like Josh Allen, whether it be a hand-in-the-ground defensive end like Nick Bosa, whether it be a defensive tackle and Quentin Williams, you take the best player available because any of those guys can get after the quarterback, and you can't be, maybe you can be a little picky at number 15 like last year. You can't be picky at number 4. You just got to take the best guy.
So then what happens then at the latter part of the first round there, though? Is there an opportunity to package picks to move back up? Do we stay with the best player available? Do we go offensive line? Like, what do you think there?
Right. I think Gruden really wants to stockpile as many draft picks as possible. People can throw around, are they going to package some picks for, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, whoever. Well, obviously not Le'Veon Bell because he's a free agent, but I don't think they'll get rid of those picks. I think they'll take them. I wouldn't be surprised if they used one of those on a wide receiver, maybe a defensive end, a guy like Jalen Ferguson, Louisiana Tech guy who's playing for the South team here this week.
Okay.
He had 26 tackles for loss, 17.5 sacks his senior season at Louisiana Tech, and he seems like an interesting small school guy. I wouldn't be surprised if they go offense, too, with one of those picks, take a wide receiver. Maybe not a number 1 wide receiver, but, maybe a guy like Debo Samuel from South Carolina, who's here this week as well.
Yeah.
So I do expect them to go with a defensive majority in the first round, but I wouldn't be surprised if they split that 24 and 27 pick offense-defense.
Okay. And then we have an early second-round pick as well, right? So that's this 34, is that right? 35? Something like that?
I believe so, yeah.
So it's way up there, too. So
35, yeah.
So there's a lot of opportunity there then as well with that high second-rounder also,
Absolutely.
Right?
I mean, that's the plus side if there is one of those Bears and Cowboys picks being kind of pushed back since Gruden single-handedly allowed both teams to make the playoffs. But basically, not back-to-back, but in very close proximity, those picks, so you basically have your pick. So even if they don't take a wide receiver, say in the first round, maybe they pick a guy up, a Marquise Brown, Debo Samuel early in the second round, because I do think they need to take a wide receiver with at least one of their first 4 picks.
Okay, good deal. So any players that have stood out to you, aside from the Raiders' obvious needs,
right.
Any other players jumped out at you? Drew Lock, anybody?
I was just going to say Drew Lock. I think, and I'm not putting it out of the question that the Raiders will have Derek Carr next season. I think they will. I really do. But I don't know if Gruden is 100% set that Carr is his quarterback for the future. If something in these next couple months tells him otherwise, I would think that the Giants or the Jaguars are likely trade destinations where, I would think they'd trade Manning and the 6th pick or Bortles in the 7th to the Raiders for Carr, and then the Raiders would take a quarterback there, whether that be Drew Lock or Daniel Jones, who are both playing for John Gruden this week.
Okay.
Or Dwayne Haskins, of course, from Ohio State.
And then we also have Kyler Murray is in there.
Kyler Murray's in there.
McSorley, which we know Gruden loves.
Uh-huh.
Like, what do you think? I mean, there's a lot of options.
There's a lot of quarterbacks. I don't know if this quarterback class is as top-heavy as last year with Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold. But there seems to be a little bit of depth here with this quarterback class. Now, I don't think the Raiders will draft a quarterback because they have Carr, and I shouldn't say that. Maybe they'll draft one in the later rounds if they're not, AJ McCarron.
Somebody falls down to the 3rd or 4th.
Exactly. You don't
something.
need AJ McCarron. You don't need Nathan Peterman, really. So I wouldn't be surprised if they kept 3 quarterbacks. Gruden mentioned yesterday, one of these guys could be a number 3 quarterback for them. So I wouldn't be surprised if he has 3 quarterbacks on the active roster instead of just 2, and one of those, a McSorley, could be a 4th or 5th round pick and be the Raiders' 3rd-string quarterback. I wouldn't be surprised at all. But if they do trade Carr, which I don't think will happen, then I think they would dip into the Lock-Jones pool in the first round.
So you mentioned Drew Lock as a surprise. The other one that jumped out at me was his name's escaping me right now, the UMass wide receiver.
Andy Isabella.
That's him. Is he? Is that somebody else that you've taken notice of, or anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, his measurements are like me. He looks like me, but I think
he probably runs a lot faster
than me.
I
think he's like 5'8", 180 is what he weighed in as yesterday. And, I'm like 6'1", 170, but Gruden said yesterday, he loves Isabella. How can you not? Like, that's the kind of guy that Gruden loves, a slot guy.
The grinder, right?
The Gruden grinder. Like, the slot guy. It's like a Hunter Renfrow here too, kind of a same deal. Now, would they go for a slot guy? You know, they're getting comparisons maybe just because of stature to, you know, a Julian Edelman or Ryan Switzer or other slot guys in the NFL. I don't think they're early round picks, but middle of rounds, if the Raiders need a slot receiver and they don't, you know, want to bring Seth Roberts back, then why not?
Absolutely. That's almost like what they were doing with Switzer, right? Headed towards that direction. Like when I saw, I'm sorry, say his name one more time.
Andy Isabella.
Isabella, thank you. When I saw him, he just like screams Patriot to me.
Right.
It's like they had the corner on 5'9" white guys for like ever, right? You know what I mean? And put him as Woodhead and all the Edelman and Welker and everybody. I just immediately thought, I'm like, man, that guy's going to be a
Bill Belichick
Patriot.
would probably make him into a pretty good
Pro Bowl
caliber player.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, good deal. We'll appreciate you joining us here on
no
Raiders
problem.
Fan Radio.
Thank you.
This has been awesome. Anything else you want to share with Raider Nation out there before we let you go? You got we got 2-3 more days, or no? Really, you're gonna be here till Saturday, aren't you?
I'll be here till Friday. I'm not staying for the game.
You're not staying for the game.
Not staying for the game, but we'll get Mayock tomorrow, Gruden tomorrow, some players later today. So still some stuff to come. I think the Raiders will be better this year. Do I think they'll make the playoffs? No. But we'll see.
8-8. Is that fair?
I think it'll be worse than that. But first,
are we going to be able to beat the guys next to us? And I'm talking about the Broncos table.
They need a quarterback. Their quarterback's terrible. But the Raiders need a home stadium for 2019.
That's true.
They've got about a week and a half to figure that one out.
I was just going to ask you that. Any updates on there? Is
they're
it still as
staying
up in the air as it sounds like?
It's as up in the air as it sounds. I think the NFL will wait till after the Super Bowl to announce it, because that'll obviously be big news. And I really have no idea where I'm going to live in a couple months.
Wow. So are you going to cover the team regardless?
Yeah, I mean, unless they move to London, because that would just be unmanageable. But I think they'll stay in the Bay Area.
Okay.
In which case, I think even if they play in San Diego, they'll practice in Alameda.
So stay in Alameda,
exactly.
Right? So then it's, do you think Levi's, is that kind of the leader in the clubhouse? No
I would
pun
think
intended.
so. If I had to, you know, take a wild guess, I know Mark Davis doesn't want to be the 49ers, you know, little brother, quote unquote. Oracle Park, the Giants' newly renamed stadium, I think Oakland Coliseum still a viable option if Mark Davis wants to suck it up and, you know, pay that money. But the tensions are there, obviously, with the city suing the Raiders. But we'll see.
Logistics is Levi's, right? That makes the most sense.
Right.
Like, it's
correct.
I mean, it's got to be the easiest move for the NFL.
Yep.
It looks good on TV, like, you know, especially when you put a bunch
a
of silver
stadium,
and black in instead of red seats, right?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Actually put fans in it.
Right.
But I got to imagine that's where they would want it to be. But
correct.
Who knows?
Yeah.
So Oracle Park, though, that's interesting. That's the one that I thought would be literally turning your back on Oakland, right? So
right, exactly.
You know, that would be a kind of a shot across the bow, you know?
I don't need to see the Raiders play on another baseball field.
That was what I thought, though. I'm like, are they going to really play on another infield?
Yeah,
I'm like,
exactly.
how funny is that? Like,
well, Gruden loves it. He said last year he wants every NFL stadium to have infield dirt, which is like psycho. But.
So are you going to cover when they go to Vegas then? Or are you staying on? Or do you not sure?
TBD.
TBD, okay.
TBD, Wills. I don't know what I'm having for lunch today. So.
Okay, all right. Well, we wish you the best of luck with everything, man.
Appreciate
A lot
that.
of stuff in flux, and always appreciate your time. And
appreciate it.
You sharing it with us here at Raiders Fan Radio. I know the fans love to hear from you, and so, absolutely enjoy the rest of the week, and go Raiders.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, Raider Nation, we are once again live here back at the Senior Bowl, and we would like to welcome a veteran to Raiders Fan Radio, somebody that's joined us once before, virtually last time via the telephone, but this time in person. We'd like to welcome NFLPA certified agent, licensed attorney, and the name is no coincidence. She's the daughter of Hall of Famer and Raiders legend, Kenny Stabler. Welcome, Alexa Stabler.
Thank you very much.
Great to have you back here on Raiders Fan Radios. It's been almost a year, I guess, since since we talked last, and so appreciate you sharing your time with us today here on Radio Row. So for a little podcast like ours, we feel like we hit the big time by doing this. So
welcome to Mobile.
Thank you very much. So this is, I would say, welcome back to you, but this is kind of your stomping grounds, isn't it?
This is home. I was born here in Mobile. grew up about an hour away in Orange Beach, and back home here in Mobile, Sweet Home, Alabama.
Okay, good deal. And so your practice is here, your
Yeah.
everything is here, huh?
It's wonderful. Work comes to me this week, every January.
That's
all
cool.
32 come here to Mobile. So
That is really cool.
convenient.
And you went to Alabama, right?
I went to Alabama, went
So-
to Alabama Law, and I live in Alabama.
So did you, are you recovered from the national championship yet?
Oh, man, I didn't expect you to bring that up. I don't know.
So I got to throw you a curveball right off the bat.
Who saw that coming? Not me. Not me at all.
Well, now you only have, 27 other national championships to be proud of, right? Or however many that Alabama's won.
There's a little comfort, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, you mentioned you're from Mobile, the Senior Bowl. This is the 70th edition of the Senior Bowl. What does this game mean to Mobile itself? What does it represent? What is it all about?
The Senior Bowl is so important to Mobile. Football is of huge importance in Alabama, but largely our focus here is on college football. The state of Alabama is the king of college football with Alabama, with Auburn, big-time programs. Alabama just played in the national championship, but we don't have pro football in Alabama. We don't have an NFL team here in Alabama, never have, and the closest team is probably the Saints, a couple hours away, at least in this part of the state, or the Falcons, or the people in Birmingham. So it's really cool to have all the teams come here in Mobile and have you see the team personnel and these top players, and it's really cool that local kids get to come out and meet the guys that they're going to see on TV on Sundays next year, and we really try to roll out the red carpet for the league and the players and the fans.
That's cool. So you mentioned the game kind of comes to you. So once a year, you don't have to travel to the draft or travel to the teams. It comes to you. So do you have players playing in the game this year? Or anything you want to tell us about there? Or?
So I had a quarterback last year, Brandon Silvers, who's actually going to be playing in the new Alliance League
cool.
here coming up.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't have any Senior Bowl players this year, but I have gone through that process with having a player in the game, and it was especially important for him because he's from my hometown as well. So essentially a local kid getting to come here and play in the game he watched as a child in the stands.
Okay, good. So you mentioned the Alliance Football League. I saw some XFL folks here earlier too. Have you been in talks with those other leagues as well, the startup leagues along with the NFL?
Yeah. So I have a player signed to the Alliance right now, and they're in training camp in San Antonio. So I'm really excited. You know, this is the first year in a long time that football doesn't end in February. They really kick off in February. So as soon as the Super Bowl's over, people can pick their secondary team and get a new season started all up again. And I'm excited about the XFL. I'm exciid about just more opportunities for players to make a living playing the game that they love. I think there's an appetite out there to support it. So, I think, you read these reports that people are concerned about the long-term viability of football, but every indication with all these new leagues indicates that that's just not the case. It's alive and well and growing.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and it gives guys like me other excuses to start new shows, right? We'll have our XFL show and our Alliance football show, right? So that is really this all really sets up this game sets up for the draft. Now you had players drafted last year, J.K. Scott, who's a punter for the Packers. Right. What is that experience like for you, the draft? And are you going to Nashville this year? And how's all that work?
The draft is wonderful because it's finally when the player realizes this is where home is, at least for the summer until the roster cuts are made, and wow, I get to start my career and be paid for this game that I've been playing and giving my time and my energy and love to for at least the last 10 years in most cases. So it's really cool, especially my first year as an agent. Having a player drafted was beyond my expectations, and to have it be JK, who, the Raiders drafted a punter right after.
I know. We were rooting for that one big time. I know you were too.
That would almost been too good to be true. But no, he's in Green Bay. He's happy. He had a great rookie season. He has a bright future ahead of him. This year for the draft, I'm happy it's in Nashville, not too far away from me. I hope I have a player drafted, but that's not up to me. That's up to these guys here that are gathering in Mobile. But I just love working with my guys. I saw what my dad went through, good, bad. happy, sad with football, and I just want to treat them how I wish someone would treat it him.
Yeah. Okay. So how does that work? We see, here in in the lobby and just everything. There's a lot of agents, there's a lot of scouts, and obviously a lot of players. What is that process like for you? Like being in it, are you selling? Like, are you connecting, networking? Like, what is that process like?
Yeah. Well, I will, to speak to the NFL scouting process, I will say they know how to do their jobs. If you can play and you have the talent, they will find you regardless of where you are and what position you play and what you've got going on. They are very good at their jobs. And so, I think my job is to really advocate for my players, facilitate the communication, make sure they are where they need to be.
On time and that kind of stuff. Don't miss meetings and all that. Yeah.
You need to get to the airport 2 hours before the plane. Things like that. Do you have your ID? But I love it. I look at them like my little brothers. They keep me laughing all day, every day, and it's just a trip. It is. I'm lucky that my dad was my dad and not one of my players, because I can only imagine the headaches that he gave his agent and the people around him. Yeah. But it's a roller coaster just like any other job, but I love it.
How does your dad's influence and obviously your connection back to your dad, how does that work with the players? Do they have an awareness of your dad? Does it give you immediate credibility? Like, how does that, because like you mentioned, you're wanting to provide them in an atmosphere and an experience that is positive based on, that's using your dad's example and the negative things maybe that he had to deal with. You're trying to remove that from the equation.
Totally.
So how much of an awareness do they have of all of that, and how much are they aware when you bring those things to the table?
Absolutely. The players now are so young. Most of the guys I work with, when we initially meet are 21, maybe 22.
Okay.
So they're generally not aware of my dad.
Yeah.
But when I sit down with them, usually they're with a coach or they're with a parent or a relative or someone that's helping them in the agent selection process, and they generally are aware, especially here in Alabama.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, my dad played at Alabama. We're from here, so there's some name recognition, and that certainly helps. But ultimately, my dad inspired me to do this. He's 100% the reason I do this, that I work with players. In a sense, I feel like my whole life prepared me to do this job. But what I hope is that my message just resonates with the players, regardless of my dad, regardless of my last name, that they can see I genuinely care.
Yeah.
I'm there to protect their long-term interests, to be their advocate, to be their sounding board, to be their counselor, to be whatever they need to succeed on the field. Because ultimately, if they can play well, if they can succeed on the field, everything else will take care of itself. The opportunities will come through. They'll build a foundation for themselves and their families. So I like to, sound out those distractions, kind of give them some tunnel vision, just focus on the game, and let me worry about the rest.
So, you mentioned being an advocate for the teams in the sport, and how much of a fan are you? I mean, obviously you got to represent your players to all 32 teams, so you're not going to be biased. But your dad is Kenny freaking Stabler, for crying out loud. So how much of a fan how much fandom do you still have, and how much can you be a fan, I guess, even is the question.
Look, I was born a Raiders fan. I'll die a Raiders fan. I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. I wanted the Raiders to draft J.K. so bad. But ultimately, my job is to look out for their best interests. And if that means that they need to make a decision that's not in line with my fandom, then I would be doing them a disservice to suggest otherwise. Because this is their life, this is their livelihood, this is their career they've been working their whole lives toward, this is what they're doing to take care of their family. That said, on Sundays, I cheer for the Raiders, always have, always will. I bleed black and silver like everyone else listening to this podcast. I think that my heart will explode the day I get to represent a Raider.
Oh, that's
that
awesome.
Hasn't happened yet, but I'm optimistic it will.
Oh, that's awesome. That is so cool. That is so cool. So you would even advocate for one of your players to be drafted by these guys next to us. We're sitting next to the Denver Broncos table, Alexa.
They did that on purpose.
I feel like we have to whisper really quietly. Yeah, I feel like they did do that on purpose, didn't they? How funny. Well, good deal. Well, we really appreciate your time today. We asked you last time for a message to Raider Nation, but is anything you'd like to say? And like I said, it's been about a year since we've talked to you. Kind of had a season of ups and downs. We had some great moments, beating the Steelers, of course, beating the Broncos, but a lot of transition going on with the team. You got a message to the fans, a message to Raider Nation out there?
I'm staying positive, and I hope they will too. I'm so excited for this draft. I think they're going to load up on talent. I'm excited about the new GM. I think this is there's a lot of exciting stuff on the front. I know the move has been a divisive issue, but ultimately at the end of the day, the Raiders are the Raiders, and I think this is going to be a good year.
Awesome. The Raiders, right? It doesn't matter what season. The Raider Nation is global, right?
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good deal. Well, thank you again for your time, Alexa. Appreciate you joining us here live at the Senior Bowl. This has been awesome and great to meet you in person.
Thank you so much.
All right, boys and girls, pay attention. You got your old Uncle Mosh here with an update. That's right. I got some stuff for you. Take out a piece of paper, a pencil, a pen. Heck, use your pocket knife and carve the info into your dashboard as you're driving down the highway. First off, you need to like us on our fan page on Facebook. That's right. Go to Facebook at Raiders Fan Radio Podcast. Don't forget about the Twitter. You know your old Uncle Mosh, he twits now. That's right. Go to at Raiders Fan Radio. Also, don't forget the Instagram at Raiders Fan Radio. Or what about our website? That's right, RaidersFanRadio.com. Heck, if you want to, you can even email us, show at RaidersFanRadio.com, or call us on the Raiders Fan Radio hotline, 909-345-3346. That's 909-345-3346. Don't forget Merv's Fan Cave on the YouTube, where you can get all the show links like the Fan Club Blitz with Splatterhead and Fitz. Find all our stuff on podcast providers like Stitcher, iTunes, and Google Play. All right, did I hit the time limit? Good.